All right, let me wrap up proceedings right now with the Champions Cup after the semi-finals. We know the final at the end of the month. It's mouthwatering. Leinster against Toulouse, the two most decorated teams in the competition. But I want to do a dream team, looking at all of the, just have to remind myself, 24 teams that started the competition. Who were the best 15 players overall? That's, well, according to me. I want to know what you think. As ever, get stuck in the comments down below. But just before I get there, just quickly, a story you may have seen that EPCR, the administrators of the Champions and Challenge Cups, are considering a semi-finals weekend next year, and they're exploring the possibility of this, with potentially the semi-final weekend being located in Porto, Lisbon or Marseille. What do you think of this? Comments down below, it'd be interesting to see what you think. So in football in England, the semi-finals of the FA Cup happen at Wembley Stadium every year. I mean, part of that's a money-making exercise. It used to be at different grounds around the country. But people accept that. But that kind of makes sense in a way because that's all within one country. What do you think about if your team was in a semi-final going to Porto, Lisbon or Marseille? I mean, sounds like a lot of fun, doesn't it? Until you add up how much that costs. Is this with the fans in mind? I suppose one of the things they're thinking is we were supposed to have two neutral venues for the semi-finals, and they were Croke Park in Dublin and the Toulouse football ground in Toulouse. As near as damn it, home fixtures for Leinster and Toulouse respectively. I mean, they earned the right to have the home country advantage, but it turned out to be a little bit more than home country, and it was home city advantage. Is that a problem? Is that something that needs to be solved? Maybe. I can see the logic of this. It's also something that the top 14 have done for a while. In fact, they're having their semi-finals weekend in the middle of June in Marseille. So there is some precedent for this and they're exploring it. What do you think? I'd love to know. Do you know the one thing that pops into my head when I saw this? I was thinking, and maybe this is cynical of me, but one of the thoughts I had in my head was they're just trying to pave the way for it to be in Riyadh or Doha or somewhere in the Far East, which will spend at Hong Kong, somewhere which will spend a lot of money to have this weekend. And is that about the cash and not actually about the fans? Just a thought. Again, maybe I'm being cynical on that one. Let me know. I'm Tim. This is Egg Chasers. If you haven't already, I'd love it if you'd hit subscribe and give the video a thumbs up to help spread the word. Let's get into the meat of this video then, which is the Dream Team, the Champions Cup Dream Team. 15 players I have selected, one for each jersey, out of what I have seen in the Champions Cup so far. Obviously, we've got the final still to come, and you won't be surprised to know that Leinster and Toulouse, the finalists, are well represented in this, but so are other clubs. And let's go for the first one, not least Finn Baxter, Harlequins loosehead prop. He's had an absolutely fantastic season in the Champions Cup. Quarter-final, putting Ben Tamifuna, all 150 kilos of him, in his pocket. And then the semi-final, getting the best of Dorian Aldegheri in Toulouse. Harlequins going very close to the final. Heartbreaking in the end for them. A fantastic run. And Finn Baxter has been a revelation. And I fully expect him to be on the plane to New Zealand and involved in the England squad, because he has got a big future ahead of him. Hooker, Piato Malvaca. Isn't that... This actually demonstrates just how difficult it was to make this selection, because I've written Dan Sheehan there. I think I went for Dan Sheehan first. I must have done. And then changed my mind for Piato Malvaca. They're both... There you go. That just highlights how difficult this selection is. They're both freakishly good. They are both on their own as the best two hookers in this competition from what I have seen, and based on what we've seen out there on the field. Malvaca just takes the edge. 5 tries for him and he's just been an absolute wrecking ball. But Dan Sheehan is so good. Those two head to head, it's quite fitting actually that I've messed up the name and they're both represented there, but I did go for Malvaca. Neethling Fouchier for the Stormers. I went at tight head prop. No Franz Malherbe for big chunks of the season in the Champions Cup, and when he did come back he was on the bench, partly because this guy has been absolutely outstanding this season. A rock. And there was that great win out in Cape Town against La Rochelle. They had some fine wins as well on the road, and he's been an ever-present for them. and in the Stormers this season. I just thought he was the best tight head prop I've seen in the competition. Tell me if you disagree. Get stuck in the comments down below. Joe McCarthy, second row. He's had some big performances, not least at the weekend. He's just such a handful, and he just makes dents. And you're looking at that final and thinking about the big bodies that Toulouse have got, and this guy will go toe to toe. He's got a Bakis Berta kind of feel to him in the way that he plays. He is a very important presence for Leinster in the engine room, and what a year or two he's had. And he's going to be going up against Emmanuel Meafou in that final, who, well, likewise, everything I've just said about Joe McCarthy, you can say about Emmanuel Meafou. Just the effort it must take for defences to tackle him and get back up again. All 150 odd kegs of the man. He is absolutely freakish, and he's had a great season in the Champions Cup. Into the back row then, I've gone for Courtney Lawes at blindside flanker. He's playing, I think he's had his best season of rugby, maybe ever, when you combine the Rugby World Cup with what he's done in the Champions Cup this year, and the fact his Northampton Saints side are top of the table. I mean, it seems such a shame that he's not on the international radar now, because he's retired himself and he's off to France next year. He may well have played, more than likely has played, his last ever Champions Cup game. One of my favourite rugby players ever, and he has been absolutely fantastic. And he pips guys like Jack Willis and Francois Crowe to a jersey in the back row, because neither of those Toulouse guys, flankers, make it, because also pipping them there is Will Evans, who just, his work over the ball at the breakdown, slowing opposition ball down, winning important turnovers, just for a small man, relatively speaking, he is hard as nails. He's had a brilliant season. Will Evans is an open side flanker for me. I could have had Alex Dombrandt at number 8. He's been very good for Harlequins, but the number 8, I mean, there's one clear classy individual, and that's Caelan Doris. Hakchiva Dayamani was very good in those early weeks in the Champions Cup, but Caelan Doris just has got such breadth to his game. He can do the rough and tough stuff. He's got some dark arts down there on the deck. He loves it in open field, and you find him popping up on the wing, and he's outstanding there as well. Just an awesome rugby player. So that's the pack. Anything you disagree with there? Anyone I've missed that I should have mentioned? Let me know. There's guys like Russ Tuima for Exeter that were really good. But there's so many good performers. I've had to pick 8. And those are the 8 I've gone for. Let me know in the comments down below. Into the back line then, staying with Leinster. And it's Jamison Gibson Park who gets the nod over Antoine Dupont. And again, another one of those matchups when you look to the final, that is absolutely mouth-watering. They are the two best scrum halves at the moment. And Antoine Dupont, in my humble opinion, is the best player in the world. I mean, that's not saying anything that hasn't been said before by many people. Jamison Gibson Park, however, is having a very, very influential season. And that matchup is box office. Jamison Gibson Park gets the nod for me. Marcus Smith gets the nod at fly half over Finn Smith. Actually, Antoine Hastoy's played quite well when he's played. There's been quite a lot of Marnie Lebok in the occasions when he did play for Stormers, was very good as well. That brilliant touch-finding kick to beat La Rochelle, the champions, early on. But I've gone with Marcus Smith, who's just been sensational. He's the top scorer in the competition. He comes up with the big plays when it's needed, scores tries, breaks lines, puts people through holes. He's been absolutely fantastic. One wing, back to Leinster, and it's James Lowe, the standout winger in the tournament so far. 6 tries to his name, equal top try scorer, and yeah, no question, he had to be in there. As did, for me, Andre Esterhazen. I mean, there were other players. Peter Aki for Toulouse has been brilliant. Actually, Jimmy Osborne's been really good for Leinster. Andre Esterhazen, 5 tries to his name. And I mentioned Marcus Smith. The two of them, we're not going to see the two of them play in this competition again together. Because Andre Esterhazen's going back to Durban and the Sharks, who've got themselves one hell of a player. And it'll be interesting to see how Marcus Smith gets on without Andre Esterhazen, because quite often it's the threat of Andre Esterhazen that attracts so many defenders that it creates space for other people elsewhere and takes the pressure off Marcus Smith. Oh, wonderful rugby player, and he's had a brilliant Champions Cup season, as has Henry Slade. Think back to those early weeks, with a young team of kids for Exeter Chiefs. operating millions of pounds below the salary cap in England, having had a massive clear out of pretty much everyone that won the Champions Cup 4 years ago, except for Henry Slade. He's the one elder statesman in the squad, and my goodness me, didn't he do a job? That win away in Toulon, that win at home to Glasgow, that win against Munster, and in each one of those 3 victories, which got them through to the knockout stages and eventually to the quarter-finals, which is a fantastic season for Exeter, Henry Slade was out of this world good. And he's kept some brilliant players. Cost for Toulouse, for example, who's been great in the last couple of rounds. But Henry Slade, the standout 13 for me in the Champions Cup. Louis Bielbiere, the equal top try scorer with James Lowe, so not a difficult selection to make on the other wing. Ordinarily, you'd think the Bordeaux winger that would be getting all the accolades would be Damien Penaud, but he missed a couple of games. So Louis Bielbiere had some magic moments, twinkle-toed feet, and he's on the wing. There were some people to mention. Mathis Lebel for Toulouse was really good. Sebastien de Klerk for the Bulls was very good. But the problem with, I guess, selecting more of the players from South African teams is very few of them played lots of games because of the travel. Teams were quite often rotated. So there we have it. Louis Bielbiere is on the wing. And it's his Bordeaux teammate at fullback for me. Tyrone Green for Harlequins was outstanding. Lots of good contenders. I just think he's the best fullback that I've seen in this competition this year. His ball running is wild. He's so good and scored important tries. Yes, they were disappointed to get knocked out in the quarterfinals to Harlequins, but it wasn't through a lack of effort or talent from that man. So there you go. That is my Champions Cup Dream Team. Your thoughts down below in the comments. Tell me what you reckon to that semi-final weekend idea as well. Give the video a thumbs up, hit subscribe. See you on the next one.